Philippines moves up the ranks of countries deemed high risk according to the Economic Crime and Geopolitics Index, mainly due to the continuing street protests against widespread government corruption allegations and public impatience over making those responsible accountable. The Philippines scored 71.65 out of 100 in the EGCI index, a measure assessing corruption levels, the severity of economic crime, public response, and geopolitical pressures, all measuring how these forces shape political stability. This month's score is higher than the 69.2 last September, officially propelling the Philippines from medium to high-risk status. The index serves as a forward-looking early warning mechanism for governments, investors, and security analysts. With us now for more, live from Washington, D.C., the proponent of EGCI Index, Sri Lankan foreign policy analyst and senior fellow at the Millennium Project in Washington, D.C., Asanga Abeyagoonasekera. Good to see you, Asanga. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
So it was just in September that you described the Philippines score of 69.2 as critical stage, with a chance to act before the pressures intensify. So what changed between that early warning and today's high-risk classification?
It's actually the third variable which we measure the public response. We have four variables measuring the EGCI. First is the corruption perception CPI perception index. The second is the economic severity. And the third one is the public response. And the fourth is the geopolitical influence. The third, the public response, increased significantly from September to now because of the scale as well as the frequency of the protests. The last protest, we could see like more than 600,000 people gathered in Manila. So yet to see the frequency as well as the scale, how it would sort of public response would kind of deteriorating. We can see the trust. There's a huge trust deficit between the public as well as the government increasing. So that's the public response variable.
We're going to get a chance to measure scale again on November 30th for the second part of the trillion peso march. Could that tip the balance? What sort of measurements are we looking for that could tip the balance in your index?
Well, again, the public response, the same variable would, if it's going to be larger in size, in terms of magnitude, the impact, and also the government response for these protests. That's also very important in other countries, such as in Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nepal, what we saw a pattern. So when the response is not sort of appreciated or by the protesters, and there is also a clash between the protesters as well as the government. So you see the turning point where the governments kind of lose control of the whole thing. So when you're in high risk, which is above 70, still Philippines in the borderline, 71. But this intensity of protests as well as the magnitude gives a sort of a warning to the government to immediately have a dialogue with the protesters as well as rectify these issues to stabilize mainly towards the political instability that is coming into the country.
Asanga, we have the benefit of history here. I'm showing a graphic that shows the countries that you mentioned, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and Nepal. Those have had the full cycle from uprising to new regime. And towards the further end, we have those undergoing the cycle itself, Myanmar, Indonesia, India, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. And all of them you have noted in the index as high risk. So where does the Philippines stand amongst these countries? And how different is it from the countries that we're seeing on the high risk?
Well, Philippines are in the protest cycle. So we have actually identified, because of the longevity of the protest, it's been happening for the month by month. So it's continuing. So what we see is Philippines, we see a significant rise, which is the 2.45 rise, which is quite higher than any other country in ASEAN. So that's kind of worrying to our end, because if the government does not take the measures, immediately arresting, as well as since it's the corruption, it's systemic corruption within the government, where the lawmakers are questioned by the protesters. So here you have government pledging that you will arrest 37 lawmakers, as well as moving quickly towards accountability. So that's something that we need to monitor and see whether it would happen, because if you don't do that, you're getting into a much worse situation, I would say.
Well, 7 arrests have been made, and I made note of that just a couple of moments ago. Could that tip the needle or move the needle?
That would definitely help to win the public trust. But I believe that you need to sort of have more accountability measures, anti-corruption measures, without any political influence. The judiciary, how it functions. So these all have to be seen in the next few months, I would say, that, how to win the public trust. So what you need immediately is the governments to do that, to win the public trust, as well as it would impact the markets, as well as the investor confidence, the FDIs and all that. So it's a holistic thing. So you would need immediately to have a dialogue with the protesters or the protest leaders who are in play, who are sort of making a main voice. Some of the countries we saw Gen Z leaders. Some of the countries we saw NGO who are leaders who have come forward. So it's kind of a genuine dialogue. What you need, the government as well as the protesters, and here the president has become a champion, trying to sort of to show that he is working towards accountability, as well as transparency. So, which is a good sign. But you need to win the trust of the public. So that would improve the public response variable.
Let's pick up on those FDIs and pull up a graphic here, because the foreign investment pledges have already fallen because of slower growth and the governance concerns. What specific channels, sectors, or industries do you expect will transmit this heightened political risk into the real economy of, say, the next maybe 12 to 24 months?
Well, the investor confidence is the most important. So here the FDIs will be impacted, such as in Sri Lanka, in Bangladesh, Nepal. So all of those countries had a huge impact to the economies. So it was the economic collapse that came in immediately after the political crisis. So what you see is you need to sort of strengthen the regulatory frameworks, the FDI confidence for the investors to bring in more FDIs, as well as your currency. So you see sort of depreciation sort of month by month. When you are in the high risk zone, it will impact the FDIs as well as the currency, as well as the the market hesitations in infrastructure projects or procurement sectors. So it's more of a policy predictability, what the government would do, where the investors will have a question, so that the government would need to work on sort of correcting those issues.
And also work on the governance, long-term governance issues that really stem from dynastic politics, if you will, Asanga. How much does the open split between the Marcos and Duterte camps, especially as both to try to leverage the scandal politically, contribute to that risk profile?
Well, I think the governance, of course, like you rightly mentioned, so it's a more of a governance issue that I see. That is, you can see sort of the same sort of pattern that's what we see in Nepal, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka, sort of coming into a cycle of governance issues that would sort of impact. Regardless of, this regime or the next regime. So Philippines is in a very vulnerable position because of our fourth variable, the geopolitical influence is very high also in Philippines because of various external influences coming into the country, such as the South China Sea issues and many other problems that the Philippines is directly facing. So here is a very vulnerable country in terms of the fourth variable also. So that you have to keep in mind.
So to your point, the geopolitics, could the heightened political risk in Manila affect how allies and partners view the defense cooperation or the economic corridor projects with the Philippines? Or do you think that those are largely insulated from domestic governance turmoil for now?
No, I think the reason that we brought in the geopolitical influence into the economic crime index was to see the larger picture, how the geopolitical influence, for example, the external funding captures the political elites in a country. So it's more of an elite capture in certain countries such as Sri Lanka or in other places. So, but if you read the recent sort of the report which is out from the U.S.-China Economic Commission, which was released 2 days ago, Philippines is the country in ASEAN. It's been highlighted more than any other ASEAN countries. So you see a significant weight given in a report such as the Commission report on Philippines. We kind of agree to a certain extent of what the Commission report has sort of highlighted on Philippines because of the external influences.
Just as a final point, Asanga, for policymakers in Manila who may feel that this new label is unfair or alarmist, what is your message to them about why this warning is being issued now and how it should be used?
Well, we try to, I mean, the whole message of the ECGI is to immediately stabilize the country. We don't want any nation to go through, such as Sri Lanka or Nepal or Bangladesh, because what you have, the full cycle, is really worrisome. Because I served as a technical advisor to IMF doing the work for Sri Lanka's diagnostic work. So you could read the entire report, which is available in the IMF. So it is very worrisome because it takes about several months to stabilize the country, and then few more years for the next elections. So we want to avoid that. So to avoid that, you need to have a frank discussions immediately with the protesters. Work on the accountability, on the transparency, as well as stabilize the nation. So that's what's important. That's what the lawmakers should do.
And I hope you're listening to us. Thank you so much for your insights. I much appreciated Asanga Abeyagoonasekera of the ECGI Index joining us live from Washington, D.C.